Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found the information on last week's show, how to have explosive profits without adding costs, informative. If you were unable to join us and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when our podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. If there are topics you'd find beneficial or questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me at media@abandp.com. Now, as I mentioned on last week's episode introduction, the last few weeks' shows are a little different as I recorded them all in one day. And because of the limited time, I recorded the content without their bio. So let me give a little info on my guest before getting into the recording. Yvonne McCoy is a women's business strategist. She helps women entrepreneurs to grow their impact and income with productivity strategies. With new clarity about constant uncertainty, clients maximize their powerful genius and talents to step into their CEO mindset. She is passionate about changing the challenges of entrepreneurial business environments into practical solutions, expanded opportunities, and increased income. She assists clients in creating innovative and amazing results that reflect the owner's impact. Her extensive experiences in coaching, divisional operations, and diversified job training, as well as life experiences, are the basis of her practical systems. Well, Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm excited to have you to discussing this topic today. I know it's going to be important for entrepreneurs. So I would love for you just to tell me just a tiny bit about how you even got involved with helping entrepreneurs in this way.
Well, I think what happened was, I have entrepreneurship in my family, but not successful entrepreneurship. And as I went on my own kind of journey, I actually started out as an entrepreneur and then ended up going to grad school to get my MBA and went through the corporate route. And then came to a point in my life where the corporation and I separated ways. And I was like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Do I want to sit in an office? Do I want, what do I want? And that's kind of how I came up with my course, The One Small Change. And that one small change is, what do you want your legacy to be? Regardless what you're doing, right? What do you want to do? What do you want to be remembered for? What makes you happy? Okay. And one of the pitfalls that entrepreneurs have is they start out with something that they love. And they do it alone. And then they're just so happy to get somebody else to help them. And that may not be the right person. And they don't have a bigger vision. They don't have that CEO mindset about how to build a business.
Right.
And as I started out coaching and I started out from the perspective of, let me get you out of the trenches and back into the vision of your business. And that was like rolling a boulder up a hill. When I flip-flopped that and started to say, what do you want to be remembered for? It made it so easy for people to make decisions. Like, does this fit into my vision of who I want to be? So part of what I do is help people to find the low-hanging fruit of what they've already got. Because as entrepreneurs, we're like squirrels. Let me get this, let me get this, let me get this. but we don't put it together so that it works well. And also to get them in the mindset that they are a CEO, even if you're not making any money yet, right? So, one of the things that I know about your business is if you are the CEO of your business, regardless how large or small it is, doing your own bookkeeping, not only are you probably not equipped to do it, but doing your own bookkeeping is like paying a surgeon to do filing.
Right.
You're saying, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. But in essence, if you could get one more client,
Right.
you could probably pay for bookkeeping and have it done right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And take that off your plate. So you have room to be creative, do other things. So
Right.
I'm like, what a great service you have.
Thank you. Yeah, it's true. I mean, and a lot of people could probably save a lot more time too, because they probably spend more time trying to figure it out. So if they just focused on their business and, what do they do best? What's their area of expertise? Where do they shine? Then they can attract additional customers. So what would you tell someone then who is saying, well, I'm not sure what my legacy should be, or, I started a business and I thought that was going to be it, but maybe that's not really what my legacy is. What would you tell them? How can they figure out what that is?
What I tell them is it's not carved in stone and it evolves. I mean, we're about changing. I mean, the world that we knew 2 or 4 years ago is not even there anymore, but your values are still there.
Right.
So that's kind of where we start. Where are your values? So, one of the simplest is I want to have a good reputation. I want to help others. I want to, it doesn't have to be, I want a building with my name on it.
Right.
That kind of thing. So that's kind of where we start. And then you kind of fine tune it as you go along because you're changing too. I mean, I know for myself, I wanted a sustainable business. I didn't want somebody to come to me and then, I decided I was going to retire next year. So that was like a big part of it. But now I'm looking at, well, wait, there are other ways to do that. I could do, licensing. I could write a book. I could, so the way that the tactics that you use actually change. Your message may not, change totally, but the way you accomplish it can.
Right. So is there something that you would give as maybe a method for them to even go through and determine what is it that, I really value? What is it that I want to do with my time, or how am I going to make that difference? Is there some type of like writing, or is there, what do they do basically to come up with what that legacy really should be for them?
I think probably a really easy exercise. I always liked this one was somebody said it was the Oprah exercise. If you were going to be introduced on Oprah when she had a show, what would you want her to say? Or you could do, what is your ideal day like? If you were incredibly successful, what would your ideal day be like? And for me, the exercise somebody gave me was to say, I am the premier whatever. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm the premier, and what does that accomplish, so that you see yourself as bigger and helping more people than are in your present surroundings.
Right. Well, and a lot of people, again, have started businesses on accident, maybe, right? It just happened. They, had a passion that they turned into a business or something. And again, they thought, well, this is how I can make a difference, so if the business really is what they're going to use for that vehicle, do you have tips too for what they can do in terms of making that more successful?
I think the first thing is don't be afraid to try new things. People hire you for your expertise because that's like the low bar. They expect you to have a certain level of expertise, but they really hire you because you make them feel confident. That old know, like, and trust thing.
Right.
And so that's really important. And that was one of the biggest hurdles that I had was like, I have this expertise and I'm this really straight-laced woman and I'm going to give it to you like this. When I actually started playing with my business more and talking about other areas of my life so that I connected more with people, I've lost 150 pounds. When I talked about that, when I talked about, I just did a post about, my son got this was years ago, got a 0 on his test because he didn't have a pencil.
Oh, no.
And he didn't ask for help.
Oh, wow.
That's like a lesson that people can learn from. So don't be afraid to change and look at it's a process. It's do something, have your failures, use that as feedback so that you can do better, right? And show up. If you don't show up, nobody will know what you can do.
Right. Well, someone might be afraid to share some of the negative side of things too, thinking, well, you might think I'm not good at what I do now because I just shared that I have this failure. So what would you tell somebody about how vulnerable they really should be in business? And doesn't matter kind of what industry that you're in. Like, is it okay to be seen more in one area as having some flaws versus another?
Well, I think we all have flaws. I mean, to say that you don't have flaws is setting yourself
Right.
setting yourself up for failure. Okay.
Right. But we don't want to show them all the time.
Well, I
Right?
mean, I think you have to come to your own level. I mean, there are some people out there that share every single thing about their life, right?
Right.
I'm not that person.
Mhm.
Okay. Until I get to know you better. But I think what to understand is there's like a spectrum. The people that you are the expert for are the people that are actually going through what your failures are.
Mhm.
So they see you as somebody who can help them because you've gone through them.
Right.
One of the biggest lessons I learned was from a guy who talked about working on your purpose. And I said, well, I want to help people lose weight. This was years ago. But I've only lost 100 pounds. I can't help somebody that only wants to lose 10 pounds. He goes, but do you understand how many people would love to know how to lose 100 pounds? When you get down to your last 10 pounds, then maybe that's the people you talk to. So there are always going to be people who are on the journey that you've already completed and people that are ahead of you that you're learning from.
Right. Right. Well, I think that's a good point too, is like, we're always going to be able to have someone who can use us as a mentor, but there's always someone that could be a mentor for us too.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would you tell somebody then in terms of, okay, so I know there's a legacy that I want to create. I've figured out now I want to do, XYZ, whatever that is, but they're not sure how to implement that now. What would you tell them should be like the first step or the first two steps, or, here's what you need to do?
So I think, the first thing I ask people is, do you want to be an empowered practitioner or do you want to be an empowered business owner? Because the strategies are different. Okay. And then once you figured that out, then we talk about what your message is and who your, I hate to even say it, your ideal audience is,
Right.
because I struggled with that for like the longest amount of time. And there are two ways to go about it. And I would say, listen to a lot of people just to hear how they explain it. But there is the typical demographics where, they're like over 50, they do this, they do the. And then there's what they call the psychographics, which sometimes makes it easier because it's like, what do they like? For me, what I realized was, because it was like, I had some businesses that were individuals. I had some businesses that were couples. I had, they were like all over the place.
Right.
And so what I realized, the thing that they all had in common was they had existing businesses that they were trying to scale and they needed to hire and bring on additional help, but they had no management experience.
So your topic title says that there's one change that you can make to help your productivity. And I would love to hear what you meant about that.
Well, it's not what you think. Most of the time when people want productivity, they're like, give me this tool or give me this system. It really is a mindset shift. And that mindset, and I'm not talking like gobbledygook kind of stuff. That mindset is, what is your legacy? What do you want to be remembered for? If you're working at your business, what are you working for that you want to build up to? And what it does is it gives you something to guide your decisions with so that you can make them faster. So that, as entrepreneurs, we tend to have that shiny object syndrome or the squirrel syndrome. And you can look at it and go, is this going to really help me get where I want to go? It lifts your head up so that you're looking further down the road. And, the old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. So it helps you to see the forest. And it's interesting because I worked for a company for 15 years. They didn't renew my contract. In May, I always went down the shore, and I was sitting on a bench, and a marketing guy walked up to me and he said, "What do you do?" And I burst out crying. It's like, "I don't have a job. I don't do anything." And it was like, I really became untethered. I was like, I was my job.
Right.
And, it was like, that's not what I want to be remembered for. Right. And in the course that I have, there's a thing called dead reckoning. I love the concept. I hate the way it sounds, but basically it's a sailing term. And what it is that before there was all these fancy things, sailors used to pick a point that they wanted to get to, because you could never get there in a straight line, because the currents and the winds would always take you off course. So it was a way to help you self-correct. And we're in a life that life is always changing. So you need to self-correct. And if you don't have a point to self-correct to, it's going to be hard to get there. So it's a way that you say, when I have to make a choice as an entrepreneur, am I going to put in an extra hour in my business, or am I going to spend time with my significant other or my parents or my children? Where do I want to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to be remembered for? And it's really based on your values.
Right.
If you want to be a reliable, honest person, in your business, then you're going to make certain choices. You're not going to have that, salesy close. You really do care about your clients, and that's important for you. So that means you may not go in certain areas or carry certain products. And so that's what the one small change is. It simplifies your life in an incredibly strong way, because you only have 24 hours in a day.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor. That's all you get. And you have to break that up between your business, your life, yourself, whatever else is on your plate.
Right.
So that's the one small change.
I think that's good too, because a lot of times we're thinking about our productivity, and we're checking things off the list and we're like, yes, we're accomplishing a lot. But when you're talking about this change and, what do you want your legacy to be? You may need to review that list and find out that there are things on there that you're checking off as to-dos that you've accomplished, but it doesn't really point you in the direction you want to go.
Well, I don't know if I shared with you the history of productivity, which is kind of eye-opening, actually. So, it started in the 1700s with being agricultural, so bushels per acre. So we obviously don't do that. And then it went to industrial when it was widgets per hour, which is why it's connected with time. We think productivity is a time thing. And we're in an informational society. It's really hard to wake up and say, I need 5 fantastic ideas today. I'll do one at 1, one at 2. It doesn't work that way. So being productive is being effective, and you have to always prioritize, because, and one way to do that is to either automate or take things off your plate, which is where, your service comes in. That's fantastic that, it's not that you can't do it possibly, but should you do it?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, like I said, there's a lot of people, if they really look at how much time they are spending on tasks that are not their genius, right? So they might be able to do it, but it takes them longer. And if they took that same amount of time and they focused on something in their business that would help bring in that revenue, help them meet a new client, whatever that is, it's a better use of their time in the long run.
And what's really interesting to me is that since I deal with a lot of women tend to think, I have to learn this first before I can delegate it or outsource it to somebody else. And you don't. I mean, you need a general understanding. You need to know what what you're getting into and what the results are that you want and things. But, you don't need to become an accountant to hire somebody to do your bookkeeping. And that happens to women in corporate so much. So when they come out of corporate, they think they need to do it as an entrepreneur as well.
Right. That's so true. I think, we just feel that we have to be able to accomplish these certain things. And yes, we know we could delegate and, yes, we can outsource or whatever that is. But sometimes I think we feel we still need to have some control over those things, and it's hard to let it go. Or maybe we feel, well, it won't be done as effectively as if I did it, right? And so we just have to learn. Sometimes there's other ways to do it, or yes, it may not be exactly the way that you're, going to have it done, or it may not even be done perfectly by that person, but over time, give them the chance, they'll learn and they'll be able to do it, and probably just as well as you in the long run.
Well, here's the thing. Delegation, if you think of delegation as getting something off your plate, then you're always going to be disappointed. Okay. And I consider outsource a way of delegating, right? If you think of delegating as a training, okay, and what you need, then you're going to get somebody that not only and the thing that entrepreneurs say all the time is, I could have done this myself in so much less time. Right. Yes, but every time you have to do it yourself, you're losing ground. Where if you invest that time into that person or the person that you've outsourced to, they will get better and better at meeting your needs. Right. And now they can do, 2 or 3 times what you could do if you did it yourself.
Right. Well, and not only that, I mean, you don't want to have to be doing everything in your business anyway. It's like, I was just telling one of my staff members the other day, because I was wanting them to learn something new too. I was like, I want to make myself like basically unnecessary in my business at some point, right? Because I want to be able to have time off. I want to be able to do other things too, and if I feel like I have to keep control of all these things, I'm never going to be able to have that freedom.
That's true. And oddly enough, as entrepreneurs, the people who come with us when we first start, we want them to have certain skill sets that they may never have. I mean, I had a client that wanted somebody who in fact was is an accountant, right? And the person who their assistant came out of being a theater major, and they wanted them to go back to school and learn bookkeeping. And I'm like, why in God's name did you think this would work?
Right. That's a creative and a logical.
And again, that was like somebody in my family said she would be a good match for us. I'm like, please don't hire any family, don't hire any references from family until you think about what it is you really need. Right? I'm not saying never do it, but think about what you really need. Right. But yeah, so it is that delegation piece, which is an important part of productivity, is really training. And the reality of it is that sometimes as the entrepreneur, we don't know what it is we do, and we don't know what it is that we need. So it's not just somebody else brings another set of eyes that says, do you know that you're not really doing, you're not really accomplishing this, or you're,
Right. There's so many reasons why we want to focus on something other than just the tasks that we're going to accomplish in our business. Right. And like I said, when it comes back to that legacy, our situation is going to change over time. Like for instance, right now, I'm now a grandmother of 2 young children, and I am so excited to spend time with them. Right. So I don't want to have to spend as much time in my business. I want to have time to spend with them and, input into their lives and, have as much time as possible with them, so that's kind of my goal as well.
So it's true. Like I said, there's a certain situational awareness of, the things that are important to us. They have the same values, but the actual things themselves can be different. And so the amount of time that you spend with them or, are with them. I just remember when my youngest grandson was around, my daughter was working a work shift that I had to pick him up. And one of the things that it was like, why am I so far behind? I mean, I loved having him. And what I realized was that I was actually putting in like 30 hours a week, taking care of this kid. It's like, no wonder I'm so far behind. I'm like, I got a second job. And it was part of the shift was I wanted to keep him, and keep him, do stuff for him. But I had to like reshift, like, when he took a nap, what, I couldn't necessarily do a client because I didn't know if he was going to wake up, but I could do research, I could do emails, I could write articles, I could, so, it's what can you do in the time that you have?
Right. Exactly. Well, I know we're coming down to the end of the episode, and I want to have you have the opportunity to share an offer with our listeners and let them know how they can connect with you.
Okay, the easiest way to connect with me is to pick up my free offer, and it's the onesmallchange.com GPS giveaway, and it is the latest version of my course that has to do with productivity, and it has a bonus in it. And it's a 20-minute video course. It's got a couple of video and some exercises that will help people think about what their legacy is and how they want to get ahead. And so it deals with their limiting beliefs, with change, and coming up with their dead reckoning. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Then you'll get on my mailing list and see all the other stuff that's going on. And I'd love to have your guys come join me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my show and sharing your expertise. I really appreciate it.
I have enjoyed our time together so much during this day.
It's been good. I've definitely enjoyed having the chance to chat with you as well. So I do appreciate your taking the time to, have, me be able to interview you for my podcast.
Fantastic. Enjoy your grandkids.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you found this episode interesting and that it answered some questions about how to accelerate productivity, impact, and income with one small change. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Yvonne or send us a message at media@abandp.com. And would you please share our show information with those you know? I'd really appreciate your support. I hope you can join us for next week's topic, creating lead magnet funnels, and a course that educates and inspires. And please remember, you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. You can find the podcast posted on multiple favorite podcast platforms, including Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next Tuesday. Have a terrific week.